Whoa, 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 whoa.
What's the problem?
This
What's the matter?
This is not a Jet show.
So what?
So how about this?
Manning lobs it. Boris alone. Touchdown, New York.
Oh, come on. I don't want to hear this.
Why not? Super Bowl champions.
Doesn't matter. I just don't want to hear it.
What do you want to hear?
How about some Mets?
Hey, if I can find one good thing that happened to the Mets, here we go.
Home run. Mike Piazza. And the Mets lead 3-2.
Oh, yeah. It's got to be, I'm sorry. We all can't be like the Yankees.
Oh, speaking of.
This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home run. Don Mattingly.
No. God, I can't believe I just said that. All right, well, listen. How about a little Nets?
If I have to.
Hit the jumper to win it. He got it.
I can't take it. I can't take it anymore. It's been a second. I can't take it. How about some Knicks?
Oh, yeah. Big spenders. Can't win a playoff.
Fair enough.
Houston pops out up top, down the lane, running jumper off the front rim and in.
All right, let's get the show started.
Here we are, polar opposites. Hello and welcome to the Polar Opposites Sports Extravaganza Awesome Podcast. I am, of course, one of your hosts, Matt Stevens. Alongside me, as always,
is Craig Moffat.
And Craig.
Maddie, it's been a minute since we had a show.
Indeed it has. Fatherhood has a way of biting you in the ass that way, right? I've never said those words until the last 10 months, and I finally understand what everybody's been going through.
Oh, welcome to the well, you've already been here, so it's like it's already been 10 months. So
yeah, it's all right. It's all right.
But
anyway, Twitter at Polarapo, Instagram at PolarapoPod, and if people are still on Threads at PolarapoPod. I'm not sure Threads is still a thing, but whatever. Every once in a while,
is it a quick demise for Threads?
Yeah, it's super quick. Every once in a while, like I feel like a fake like girl like friends us, on Threads, and it's it's like
a bot with huge boobs and
a super sexy girl who has like follows like 800 people and has like one follower.
Yeah, when it says like, oh, so like Candy followed you, I'm like, no fucking way. This is not possible.
Yeah, I'm sure she picked me out of all the guys.
Well, we got a lot to do. This is going to be more of a catch-up show for this week because
there's nothing going on, man. It's the dog days.
Yeah, it's pretty much dog days of August. Football's about a month away. Both our baseball teams are crap right now. And basketball is a couple of months away now? Is it early October at season starts?
Yeah. Well, the training camps, I don't think it starts till Halloween though. I think Halloween's opening night. So we got a couple months there. Here's the other thing. We're not talking about NFL preseason games because I don't talk about games where the starters don't start. What am I talking about then? Nothing. I'm talking about nothing.
But you know what it is, Matt? And like this is like I won't post anything on Twitter. I'm not a Twitter fan, but just seeing the reactions of people on Twitter to preseason games is unfucking believable.
Crazy is the
like
right
it's
word.
It's not even like it's delusional. I mean, think of any other paranoia, delusion. I mean, just completely brainwashed into thinking. And you know what bothers me too is like, I read a lot of different blog writers for different teams. And they're so eager to tell you what's really good, right? And they're so eager to tell you what's really bad. But it all ends with the same fucking caveat. And that is, it's just the preseason, so it's too early to really tell.
Yep.
It's like, you either think that this is a problem or it's not. Like, you can't keep, like, putting that in there. It's like, it gets, like, ridiculous after a while. I was reading like a lot of the Jet stuff with like the offensive line. And I know the offensive line is an issue right now. It's not, I mean, you'd be blind to think if it wasn't because you just don't know who the tackles are. They want Becton. It looks like they want Becton to win the job outright, but he hasn't played in 2 years.
Right.
So they have to be prepared for that. So it's like, but again, it's that, well, the offensive line is a real big issue, ... But, it's too early to really tell like how, it's like Triumph the Insult Comic Dog. It's like, yeah, you're really great, for me to poop on.
Right.
Like, it's just like that little fucking caveat that just drives me crazy. It's like, you either think this is a thing or not, but you can't keep like doing the whole, yeah, it's a thing, but it's not a thing because it's too early in the preseason. Mm-hmm. Like last night, one of the things that was like flooding Twitter was Elijah Moore and the Cleveland Browns doing an 18-yard jet sweep, 18 yards. Connor Hughes was like literally having an erection about it. And he was basically just like, oh, yeah, I never understood why the Jets gave this guy up. Off a fucking 18-yard jet sweep. I mean, are you kidding me with this?
Craig, you don't think we've been dealing with the same thing with Kadarius Toney?
Yeah, it's just
meanwhile,
like,
listen, and Kadarius Toney had a big play in the Super Bowl. Don't get me wrong, he did, but he's also hurt again, and he's not playing. And he didn't play a lot when he got traded over there. And he had the one big play, and that's what he gets, and that's fine. But don't tell me the Giants didn't win that trade. Like, come on. Now they won a Super Bowl, so they obviously win, but they didn't win. Like, you know what I'm saying. But here's all I'll say as well, and this is the other thing. Even if the starters were playing, I don't care about preseason.
Like, I like watching it for like the UDFAs to see if any of those guys, you find a diamond in the rough type of player.
Fourth quarter is where I'm tuning in.
Exactly. You know, like those are the guys you want to see. Like, oh my God, I really want to see this guy make the team and everything.
Because those dudes are trying their asses off.
Oh, of course. That's where the game actually gets good in a way, because those guys are like fighting for that bubble spot on the roster. But the thing is like, even when the starters play, it's like, it's either blown out of proportion, like, oh my God, this guy's going to be amazing, or it's like immediately like belittled as to like, well, it's the preseason, so it doesn't count.
Right. The only time I worry in the preseason, if it's consistently bad.
Yeah.
That's the only
of course
time
that makes sense. I mean,
but if it's consistently bad, fine. But if you have a bad quarter, like Craig, I was on Bleacher Report this morning, and I went to the comment section, and some dude literally just put, "Should I be worried?" After the Giants lost in the fourth quarter. They were winning at halftime, right? They were winning when all their second stringers,
when their main players were in the game,
right? But so I just went in and I typed, "Do me a favor, put down the Cheetos, get up off the couch in your mom's basement, and go outside, man.
Take a walk.
Outside's beautiful. It's fucking nice outside. Just go out. You need to go outside." And I would say that to a lot of people. Just go outside. Put your phone down.
It's just crazy, like how people just overreact. And I'm like, it's the preseason.
Yeah.
It's the preseason.
I won't even overreact like that to the first game. I mean, I'll be annoyed if they lose. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm saying. But like, I'm not going to overreact one way or another about how their season's going to go. We've watched football too long, Craig. Both of our teams have started out 6-0, 5-1, and ended the season under 500. Yeah. Like, I've seen it too much to get even crazy about the first three games.
Even the other day, because yesterday was Jordan Love's first game as a Packer.
Oh yeah,
and like, Jordan Love throws one touchdown pass. And everybody's like, oh, this is the pass. This is what I'm talking about. Like,
Aaron, who?
Yeah, I'm like, are you kidding me right now? It's like, listen, there's nothing wrong with being excited for a player. Okay. Like, there's guys on, like, I'm sure you're excited to see some guys on the Giants that are, that you think could be really good this year. And there's nothing wrong with a fan being excited for like a player or players that they just want to see do well. But like, you can also see when fans are trying too hard to sell you on this narrative. And it's so like ridiculous. Look, Jordan Love could be a good quarterback. I have no idea, but I will reserve that judgment until the games count. Then I will determine once and for all if Jordan Love is a good, and it's going to take me a few games. I'm not going to tell you after one game, oh, he sucks. It's just like these fans, and it's like all this Twitter, like knee-jerk reactions all the time.
By the way, Craig, and we both know the answer to this. If Jordan Love was a really good quarterback, they would have traded Aaron Rodgers 2 years ago.
Exactly. They would have traded him last year to Denver for whatever Denver was going to give him.
Well, if they gave him what they gave Seattle, they would have had to give more, right? Because I mean, Aaron Rodgers is better than Russell even before the last year. So anyway,
that's all I need to know. Like at this point,
preseason football, watch it. It's fun. I love watching preseason football. I just don't react to it because I don't care. I don't care. What I will say this though, Craig, there are certain things I do care about. And the only thing I do care about is stupid shit, right? Like the Giants last night gave up a kickoff. I think it was a kickoff or punt. I can't remember. It was a special teams touchdown. And it ended up, they only had 10 men on the field. Last year, they gave up at least I think it was 2 to 3 touchdowns where they only had 10 guys on the field. Like, fuck, man. Football's hard enough as it is. To do it with 10 guys is even harder. And I guess my problem is like, hopefully they're going to get out of their system. But like, you would have thought that they'd had already been out of their system after they did it in the regular season last year. So that's the only shit that I'll get annoyed about. I don't get annoyed about play. That's crazy.
But again, you could just do the caveat. They got to work some things out. It's the preseason.
Right.
They just got to make sure they get 11 guys on the field, and they'll be fine.
Although I will say this, and this is weird. Does it seem like the refs are better in preseason? Like they let them play a little bit more, but they seem to get all their calls right.
Yeah, I also ask myself, like first and second stringers. Those are the two guys. Those are the most likely to make the team.
Right.
And then I ask myself, how hard are they really playing? Just because I know they don't want to get hurt.
Right. Is the speed's not the same, right?
Yeah, the speed is definitely not the same. I'm sure it's a very vanilla type of offense because they don't want to, show their hand before the season starts, kind of thing. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, refs miss calls. I mean, it's all common, but
they do. I just think it's funny that they get them more right in the preseason. But again, that makes sense. It's slower.
Yeah, I just think like a lot of the first and second stringers are really not breaking their backs,
Right.
And although last night watching like the Broncos highlights, I don't know if you saw the Broncos Cardinals highlights. Russell Wilson played a quarter and a half, and like the first quarter he was getting sacked by like third stringers. It was like Peyton started the entire first string offense. Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton all played like at least a quarter yesterday, and Russell Wilson was just as bad as he was like last year. Against like the Cardinals weren't even playing anybody like good because they didn't want to rest. They wanted the rest of the defensive guys.
I'll say this: if that's the way it turned out, I think Peyton made the right move. They gotta play. They were so shit last year. They gotta play. You don't get to sit out in the preseason if you're crap the year before, right? Like you just don't get to.
I just thought it was funny. Not only did he not sit out, played a quarter and a half,
in
the first preseason game, which is literally unheard of.
Right. Means what? It's crazy. It's crazy. Anyway, let's move on to stuff.
Right. So as we said before, this is basically going to be a show of just a lot of stuff that we've missed because we were off for a few weeks. We're going to talk some baseball. We're going to kick it off with baseball. We're going to get into a little bit of football stuff. We're going to get into some basketball. The Knicks bringing back Josh Hart. We're going to talk about that, and we have a few other non-New York stories that we want to get into as well. Again, you can follow the show on Twitter at Polar Oppo. You can follow the show on Instagram at Polar Oppo Pod. You can subscribe to the show courtesy of Apple Podcasts. Like and comment, leave us a 5-star review because it makes us feel so special at the end of the day. Maddie, let's kick it off with some baseball. The trade deadline was over a week ago. The Mets decided to just tank the season, I guess, at this point. They wound up trading pretty much everybody. They traded Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, David Robertson, Tommy Pham, and Mark Canha. Steve Cohen pretty much ate a lot of money to get prospects back. To the surprise of me, these moves have been relatively well received.
It makes me so angry.
Right? Which is, look, at the end of the day, Cohen's going to spend the money. So if he can spend the money, more power to him. But it was pretty obvious it wasn't working with Verlander. It wasn't working with Scherzer. And this all pretty much started with the David Robertson move. The David Robertson move to traded him to the Marlins, and that's what triggered Max Scherzer to get kind of pissed off and be like,
"Oh yeah, to the GM."
I want to go to like he was basically like a fucking Karen, basically like I want to talk to your manager type of shit. And like he says it to the public, and then 2 days later he gets traded to Texas. Yeah. So that was actually pretty funny, to be honest. So after all
exile,
that,
shit.
I know
New York to Texas.
So Verlander also, after that happened, Scherzer reportedly came out in his first press conference with the Texas Rangers, and he revealed the discussions he had with Steve Cohen and Billy Epler, where they basically told him they would probably not be competing again until 2025. Now, I find that hard to believe because I don't believe for a minute that Cohen is not going to be aggressive this offseason. I'm not saying he's going to give like $200 million contracts like crazy like he did this year. But I definitely think that he's going to spend. I don't expect him not to spend this offseason. The problem is, and I guess I didn't have a problem with the prospects they got. I kind of just wish maybe we would have gotten like a pitching prospect or two.
Okay.
Because most of the prospects we got were either outfielders or infielders.
Right.
But, because the Mets pitching prospects in Syracuse or Binghamton, they're razor thin, man. Like they just don't have a lot.
Right.
Outside of like the only guy I really have heard about is Mike Vassell, who's in Double-A right now. He's not really anywhere close to coming to the team, maybe like 2 years from now. So it puts the Mets in a spot where they may wind up having to spend money on pitching again because they don't really have anybody in the farm that's ready to come up and make a debut by next year. I don't have a problem with the moves in general because I just didn't think it was working, and I didn't think next year it was going to work either. The fact is that Scherzer just wasn't really as good as I wanted him to be. Verlander, while his numbers were solid, I just always got this when I was watching him pitch. He always seemed like to be laboring right off the start. You know what I mean?
I mean,
Like he wasn't really like dominant the first couple of innings. He was always giving up a home run or like hits.
He's 40. You know what it's like to be 40, dude. It takes a long time to get loose, man. Shit.
Takes a couple of extra hours in the morning, like, you know, before you warm up.
I mean, I'm still stretching from the fucking morning. God damn.
But it all makes sense by why he was so dominant by the time the fourth inning started, because, you know, got it out of his system type of thing. So it wasn't working. I think it would have been much of the same result next year in a way. So I'm okay with the moves. I don't care if Cohen had to eat money. That doesn't bother me because he's the owner. And if that's what he wants to do, fine. I don't know if I want to say that like the season was a disaster, but I guess the better word to describe it was just inconsistent, because you'd get solid pitching, no hitting. You get solid hitting, then you get no pitching. And then the bullpen was just like a tightrope act of its own every single night.
Right.
You know, especially after the Diaz injury. So overall, by the way, Scherzer wasn't the only one who wanted to speak to management. So did Brandon Nimmo. And I kind of cracked up when I saw that.
I mean, the dude signed a long-term contract under the guise that they were going to be competitive.
Yeah, and I don't think the Mets are not going to be competitive next year. I do think like he's going to add pieces. But the thing with me is that it wasn't working this year. Like it just wasn't working. And next year wasn't really I don't see anything that was going to make it any better.
Oh, no. I'm not saying I disagree with them doing what they did. But here's my thing. I think everyone can be right? Like Nimmo can be pissed, right?
Yeah.
But the moves could be right? Like all the things can be true. And I think that's what's true here. Here's my problem. And this is my problem with these people. I'm so tired of this crap. How long do we have to watch baseball before we come to the realization that prospects mean absolutely nothing in this sport? Nothing. You can find somebody anywhere, and it doesn't matter where, and it's usually not the first pick. It's usually the 85th pick or some shit like that, or some guy that you found playing on a dirt field in the middle of nowhere somewhere. Okay? Like, and the other thing too is, and I'll say this, and everybody was making a big fucking deal because you got, what's his name's brother?
Acuna Jr.
Acuna Jr. Brother. When was the last time the younger brother was just as good as the older brother? Or when there's two brothers and they're both really good? Because I can't think of one. Can you?
Yeah, but it's such a few and far between, though. I mean,
right? But there's
most of the time, it's like the player's son, like, or you know, like the son is
like the Boone brothers. I mean, not one of them were great, but still. But like Vlad Guerrero was way better than his brother, right?
Okay.
I'm just saying, like Wait,
who was Vlad Guerrero's brother? I thought Vlad Guerrero Jr. was his son.
No. Vlad Guerrero's brother played in the major leagues for a long time. He was like a utility guy.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah. He played with him in Montreal.
What about El Duque? Wasn't his son? No, they were cousins. Or I thought they were brothers.
No, they're cousins.
I see what you're saying, and I agree with you on prospects, because if there's one thing with me, it's that prospects they're just like I think you've even said it, and I've said it. They're basically a lottery ticket.
In this sport specifically, though, but in baseball specific, because I think it's different in football and basketball, right? You can project more.
When we trade picks, or we trade players for a draft pick, or we trade players for a young player, in the NFL, it's different, because the NFL, those guys are more ready for pro sports than any other league, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely not hockey, definitely not baseball. And basketball is kind of 50-50 for me. I think it takes the kids a little longer, but they're there because college, I guess college is no use for them. But the thing is that, so when a deal like that happens, right? They trade Verlander, they trade Scherzer. The first thing I say is, oh, they're tanking for a pick. And I laughed at myself when I said that, because who the fuck tanks in a draft for a pick?
In baseball, I mean, it happens all the time. The Houston Astros did it for like 4 years.
But how risky is it, though? Like, to do that? Because in baseball, it's like it takes a good prospect, 4 years to finally make it to the bigs, unless you're like ready-made, like a guy like Bryce Harper, or now
some of the college pitchers come up, pretty quick. But most guys, it takes at least 2 years, at least.
So the thing is, like, there was a working theory going around that the Mets were trying to tank to get into the lottery, like the top 5, where they have like a. But the problem is, if they pick anywhere below 6, their pick drops 10 spots as part of it because they went over the luxury tax threshold. So it's like,
and they're not finishing that low.
It's not. Yeah, I don't think they will. But looking at the lineups they're putting out these days, who knows?
Well, maybe they're trying. I don't know. But
Daniel Vogelback hitting 5th still after he swung and missed at a pitch that hit him.
To be fair, his surface area is greater than most hitters. The chances of that happening are better.
I've never seen a guy look fucking more stiff at the plate than Daniel Vogelback.
Yeah.
Like, it's like I said, it's like Chris Farley's fat guy in a little coat. Yeah. Like he looks like he's uncomfortable with that jersey. Like if he exerts any more energy, that jersey's ripping from the back down.
Yeah.
Right.
One more thing. I just want to say this real quick. So here's what I would say about the trade. To me, for the Mets, it's nothing. Like, you traded away guys, so you don't have to have them for next year, and you can sort of reload if you want to. And you got prospects for them, but you don't really know if those prospects are going to be good because they're Major League Baseball prospects.
Oh, no, wait. Don't tell that to the Met Twitter faithful, because they know everything about prospects.
I know, but
I just shrug my shoulders and I go, okay, we got prospects. Like I can't get so excited about prospects.
Also, as a Met fan, how can you? How many prospects have you really developed?
And we've been terrible at it. I mean,
right. And so, like, you're telling me it's going to get better. And what the best post I saw was, these guys are going to be good because they're coming from another farm system. I'm like, okay, but they're going to play in the Met farm system now. But
the thing is, Houston's farm system wasn't really that good. Because they traded away everybody to get other players. So their farm system was really thinned out.
It's just this. These trades and this year is a disaster for the Mets. Like, let's just say like that, right? Like,
it was brutal. It still is. I mean,
disaster for the Mets, and it's been a disaster year. And you don't want to say it because it's not true. It's not the same old Mets. It's different. They tried something that didn't work. The other regime would never have tried this because they would never have spent the money to get those guys in here. What the Mets basically tried to do was buy a World Series in a year, right?
And that was basically because their farm system sucked.
Right.
Their farm system was so top heavy.
Now they're going to reload, and they're probably going to be average next year. They could go on a run. They could maybe make a wild card next year, something like that, but they won't be great. They won't be good.
Not in that division.
And here's the other problem, though. You have to start looking at things like this. Like, by the time this starts to hit, you're going to have Lindor's going to be like 34. You know what I mean? Like, what are they going to do with Pete? You know what I mean? Are they even going to bother signing him now? Because if you're not going to be competitive for a year or two, then why wouldn't you just let him? Why wouldn't you trade him?
Well, that was the thing I was saying, because everybody was like, well, how dare you say you should trade Pete Alonso, or like he's such a great character guy and everything. That's not my issue with Pete Alonso. It has nothing to do with his character. It has nothing to do with the way he plays the game. It's very simple. I don't want this team in an Ohtani type situation that the Angels find themselves in right now,
right?
Where you let the guy play on his contract year. He is destroying, he's just having he's having a Hall of Fame season. If maybe I'm blowing it out of proportion, but
no,
the fact is
leading the league in almost every category in pitching and hitting.
And the fact is that now the Angels, who bought all in and have been terrible since they bought all in, okay, now find themselves in a predicament where they're not going to have him back because they're probably not going to be able to afford him next year. I don't want that situation for the Mets and Pete Alonso. Like, I just don't want it. So if the Mets find themselves in a situation where a deal is not getting done, like, I mean, not even close,
bye-bye,
then you got to trade him. Because if you keep dragging this out, that's where we run into the problem.
Is there a team in sports more like George Costanza than the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim?
It's just
like, could you imagine if they made the opposite of every decision they've made over the past, say, 5 years, they'd probably be World Series champions.
Yeah. And the thing is like, between buried and bad contracts, and they made a lot of trades, and it's not worked out. And it's like now it just looks brutal. And even a team like the Diamondbacks they came out of the second half after the trade deadline. They've been terrible.
Right.
I mean, there's been a lot of bad teams since the trade deadline passed. But the thing about Alonso is, like, again, I would love to have him here. Like, I'm not saying I don't want him here. It's just a case of I don't want an Ohtani type situation. That's it. Right. If you decide to sign him, I'd be very happy if he stayed. But if you find yourself right before training, spring training, and there's still no long-term deal done, that's what would scare me the most. Because I don't want to go into the 24 season and watch Pete Alonso freaking crush the ball, and then basically he's telling the Mets, well, I want $500 million.
Right.
Type of thing. Because then you're just the Angels of Anaheim. That's exactly what you are.
All right.
So let's
that nonsense.
So let's jump to the Yankees. Yankees were relatively, they were pretty quiet at the trade deadline. They made like 2 minor moves. There's some issues. Herman is out for the season as he needs is he seeking rehab? He's going to rehab.
But Craig, this is different. This is different because rehab only takes 30 days. He's out. They told him he's gone for the whole season. Something else happened here. We don't know about yet, but something else happened here. I'm not saying what. I don't know what. I don't know if he showed up to work drunk. I don't know if he hit his girlfriend again. And I'm only saying that because he's done it before and he did it in a room full of people. So there's the idea that he wouldn't do it again is crazy.
You know when you're going to find out about it? You're going to find out about it when he's on another team.
When they cut him,
then the other shoe will drop, and then they'll be like the source. An inside source with the Yankees will confirm what happened with Herman that day.
And the thing that really is crazy, I mean, like the thing that's amazing now is that dude lives on in history with the fucking perfect game. If it's a no-hitter, he's forgotten, right?
Yeah.
If it's a no-hitter, he's forgotten. But it was a perfect game. And that is awesome. That dirty motherfucker who beat his girlfriend and it like is now in rehab. And I don't like the alcoholism is one thing that shit's hard to get to deal with for a lot of people. It really is. I'm not mocking that. I'm not even mocking the beating your wife thing. I'm saying that for baseball, that baseball hates that shit. That baseball, when that happened, was like, you couldn't have just walked one guy or hit one guy.
No, it's in the record books now. That's
24th now. It's got to be Domingo Herman. We went from friggin' David Cone and David Wells to Domingo Herman.
Wait, you got it there. Here comes the caveat. What is the caveat? Nope.
No, I'm kidding.
It was against the Oakland A's.
It doesn't matter.
I know. I'm just saying, like, that's what people are going to say when they want to discredit Herman after Herman leaves the Yankees, right? And they start, and like you'll watch like a Yankee game, and they'll be like, it's the 1-year anniversary since Domingo Herman's perfect game, and there'll be some schmuck on fucking social media who's going to turn around and go, yeah, but it was against the Oakland A's. It doesn't really, it's really ridiculous. It's a fucking perfect game.
Well, let's be fair. Really, only one perfect game was ever thrown against an amazing team, and that was Don Larson's, right? Like, all the other ones were thrown probably against shitty teams. Like David Cone was against the fucking Montreal Expos. Yeah, Vlad Guerrero was in that lineup. But if I'm remembering correctly, like they had gotten in late the night before, some crazy shit had happened, and like you could just see they were just swinging at everything. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Was that the year that Frank Robinson had to manage the team because Major League Baseball took over control of the Expos because they were just so like poorly run?
I want to say yes.
I remember there was a year. I just don't remember what year it was where the Expos were so poorly run by whoever was running the team at the time that Major League Baseball had to step in, and they like got rid of the manager and they put Frank Robinson in the job because that's just what they did. But
so real quick, all I'll say is this. I think Cashman did a terrible job. And I'm not saying he should have acquired people because I don't think this team is going anywhere. And to waste trading the prospects for guys is stupid to me. Where I think he screwed up was not getting rid of Gleyber Torres, was not getting rid of DJ LeMahieu, was not trying to get rid of Severino, really anybody but Cole or Judge. Right. You know what I mean? Like whoever you want, and Volpe, who actually has turned out to be a pretty good player over the year. I know his average isn't good, but like it was so bad to begin with, Would
it kill people just to give him some time? Like what if
right? He's playing shortstop for the Yankees. Like there's no pressure.
Like he's not like, because he's not Derek Jeter 2.0 right now.
but he actually is a little bit better because he's better defensively than Derek Jeter. But anyway, that's a story for another day. What I'm saying is this, and this is my problem with Brian Cashman. First of all, you signed Rodon with the injury history, and guess what happened? Whoa, guy got fucking injured. So we won't see him for 7 more years. Just keep that in mind, everybody. At the end of that, you heard it here right now. It's August 12th at 4:01.
Okay. He's gonna be hanging out with Carl Pavano.
Yep, him and Carl Pavano with his ass hurt. He had a hurt butt cheek or some shit like that. You're just never gonna hear from them again. And so, like, you could tell me, well, Cashman's made good moves. Okay, yeah, he signed Garrett Cole. That was difficult. He signed Garrett Cole. That was tough. Now, here's where Brian Cashman is really good, Craig. Brian Cashman is really good at finding like these sort of like journeyman guys, bringing them in, and then like they develop into like decent players, right?
He's actually got a few this year with McKinney and Bowers. And I mean, those guys definitely, I mean, they're not elite players, but they're serviceable
players. But the problem is he's so bad at evaluating good talent.
And you need that
he
to win.
Can't evaluate good talent.
And you need that to win.
Right.
If you don't.
He can evaluate average talent really well. He can say, this guy's really good at this, so we should just have him do this. But when it goes time to spending the big contracts on the big guys, like, oh my God, it's terrible. It's so bad. And he didn't do anything. And again, I didn't want him to acquire anyone. I didn't want that at all. Trade guys. The Marlins were begging for Gleyber Torres. They were begging for him, and you didn't trade him. Why? DJ LeMahieu, gone. You could have brought some of these guys up and got them playing time this year, like you did with Judge and you did with those guys back in the 20s.
Probably also gotten. I mean, Gleyber's having a much better year this year than he's had the last 2.
Right. You could have gotten,
and you could have definitely gotten like a couple of their young pitchers. I think the young Marlins pitchers, like for your rotation. I mean, that would have probably been beneficial. And now you have Nestor Cortez, who could be out for the season now, because he re-aggravated the rotator cuff injury because now they rushed him back.
Right. Here's the problem. And we talk about this all the time, Craig, when either this incarnation or any other incarnation of this show. The worst thing for your team to be is mediocre.
Yep.
And the Yankees right now are mediocre. Yeah, they can run off a 3-4 game win streak, but then they're going to lose 3-4 games. Like that's where they're always going to end up. And they're just mediocre right now. And they should just shut Judge down. If you need surgery, get surgery right now. Go, boom, done. You're out for the season. I don't care. This isn't, and to me, that's not like him being injury prone. That's fucking Dodger Stadium being built like shit. Okay. Yeah. And also like Rizzo, shut him down for the year. Goodbye. Rizzo was having a great year until that injury.
But is that a knock on the Yankee medical staff at the end of the day? Because you're going back all the way to May. I mean, you're tracing that injury back to May.
I understand that, but the guy passed the concussion test. What are they supposed to do? If he passes the concussion test, right? And then he makes it seem like, and I'm not blaming Rizzo for this either, by the way. This is not me blaming anybody. This is me just saying what I think happened. And yes, they missed it. And it's bad that they missed it. But here's my thing. If he passes the concussion test, right? Mm-hmm. And then he's still sort of able to play, him playing like shit over the last 2 months could absolutely have been because of a neck injury. You're talking about swing, you're talking about fielding, right? So like it could have been the neck injury. It turned out it wasn't. It turned out he had a concussion. And he didn't say anything until he started feeling like foggy, which was happened like a month and a half later. So like, I'm not sure what the Yankees could have done differently. I really don't. I just don't. Like they missed it. Sure. Great. But like after they missed it, like unless he comes forward and says, I'm feeling this, that, or the other, I don't know what they're supposed to look for. You can't bench a guy because he's in a slump. He's Anthony Rizzo. Who the fuck you playing at first base?
No, I see what you're saying. It just seems like the time frame between May and now, and then all of a sudden now he's got fogginess. Who knows how long he's been dealing with this? And I'm not trying to throw the medical team under the bus. It's just the fact of like, it's either their fault or in a way it might have been partially Rizzo's, because Rizzo is like saying, yeah, I feel great. And then he's just not hitting well. And now you're just getting other issues with him to the point where anything with the head at this point, sit the season.
Well,
like, there's no reason.
Just get out, just be done, especially since they're mediocre. But here's the other thing, Craig, I'll say this with what we know more than we ever have, but I think we still know very little about concussions. The one thing that I do know about them is that sometimes the symptoms don't start right away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so he could have been like lethargic or whatever, but that could have been, again, chalked up to having a neck injury. You can't sleep at night, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like maybe those symptoms didn't start until a month and a half later. And so they figured out it was a concussion thing. Again, I don't know. Could it have been the Yankee medical staff fault? Of course. I just don't think why. I mean, if you think he has a concussion, why you wouldn't keep sending him out there? Like, they wouldn't do that. Because the repercussions of finding that shit out afterwards are too great.
One of the Yankees' moves at the trade deadline was acquiring reliever Kenyon Middleton from the White Sox. And upon arrival with his new team, Middleton had plenty to say about the White Sox organization, and it wasn't good. During an interview with ESPN, Middleton said, "We came in with no rules. You have rookies sleeping in the bullpen, guys missing meetings, guys missing pitcher fielding practices. I don't know how you police the culture if there are no rules or guidelines to follow because everyone is doing their own thing." End quote. Now, you would think that it's just a guy like just ripping the organization. Okay. Like that's when you first hear the comments, you're like, oh yeah, the guy's just, he just doesn't like the White Sox and he's an asshole, like kind of thing. That's the first initial reaction you're going to get. But the plot thickens, right? Because Lance Lynn, who got traded at the deadline, I think he went to the Dodgers from the White Sox, basically backed up Middleton's claims. And he said, and this is what he said, "I was here longer than him. He's not wrong," which is insane.
Right.
Like, where do you begin in pointing the blame to what is happening with that franchise? The manager is inexperienced. I think it's his first year he's ever managed. I don't know what his background is as a coach or anything like that. But is it just something where you literally have to fucking fire the entire organization at this point? Because that is a terrible look for a team that seemed to have high expectations.
People were picking them, right? A lot of people were picking them.
People were picking them last year when La Russa had them.
Right.
And now they go to a totally polarizing.
Well, and then you heard about
with the manager.
Well, you heard about who was it? Gurriel, who slapped Tim Anderson. Like,
Tim Anderson got his ass knocked out by Jose Ramirez.
I mean, you can't pull up your hands like that and then get dropped. Like, you can't do it. You can't. I'm sorry, man. And if you're gonna do that, at least have a folding chair in your back pocket. By the way, wrestling is having a moment right now because of that fight in Alabama with the chair.
Yeah,
like people, it's anyway. Sorry. I digress.
Well, one thing I will say is for the Anderson fight, the Cleveland announcer probably had one of the best calls of all time, by far.
I tried to find the Spanish call of that, but I couldn't. I figured everybody at this point had heard the call, so I didn't download it.
Spanish radio calls are very tough to find, but my God, but they are the best.
We'll do some in the near future for football. But anyway, but here's the thing, Craig. I mean, this has got to go up to the GM, no? Like the GM is involved, is the person responsible for the culture of the team, right? Even president of baseball operations, whatever the highest thing is under the owner, that dude's got to go, and everybody underneath him's got to go. Every person, you have to change everybody. You have to change everybody, because if you don't, shit's gonna seep through, right? It's always gonna seep through, and guys are gonna be able to do whatever they want to do. And like the fact that this is happening, and like the fact that like you just can't, like, it's such a bad look, right? Like, people hate that athletes make so much money anyway, but if they ever found out that they were like sleeping during games or whatever, like all the shit that was going on there, like whatever, sleeping in the bullpen, crap like that, like they would lose their fucking minds.
Of course. And especially when it's your favorite team too, like that makes it worse. Okay, and White Sox fans are very devoted to that team. And when you hear shit like this, and then you have a guy backing him up,
right,
that's not on the team anymore, that just makes it even worse. That's just like, well, that's it. I mean, this is really, really bad for this organization. And the White Sox were a team that last year were predicted to do big things, and they sucked. And this year were predicted to be better than what they were last year. Now that La Russa was gone, and they were like, oh yeah, they got tired of his old drill sergeant, old geezer ways of doing things. So they bring in a manager that, again, I don't really know much about his experience, but I guess he came recommended because otherwise you wouldn't have hired the guy.
Right.
And it's 10 times worse.
It's it's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. It really, really is. And like, look, just get rid of everybody. That's the only thing you can do, right?
You got to fire the manager too.
Thing you can do.
You got to fire the manager.
Here's the question I have though, because this is something I've always thought about. Keith Hernandez, right, gets a pass because the Mets won the World Series. But if the Mets hadn't won the World Series and they had to pull him from the clubhouse where he was drinking a beer and playing cards during a World Series game to pinch hit, and if they hadn't won, could you imagine?
Different time.
How different? No, I understand that. But you can't tell me that like it wouldn't have been treated differently. Oh, if Keith Hernandez hadn't been drinking up.
Think about it. Okay, I'll even give you one better. Remember the year when Vince Coleman was on the Mets?
I do, yes.
Okay. And remember like that team just wasn't good, or they were just like not as good as they should have been?
Yes.
And then all that shit came out afterwards, and they're throwing the firecracker at the fans and all that shit.
Yeah.
Right? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Had the Mets won that year, this wouldn't be an issue, right? Now, all of a sudden, it's like it looks worse because the Mets were a terrible team. If the White Sox were a playoff team right now, I don't think we'd be talking as much about them, the rookies sleeping and all that stuff. Because even, I can't speak for certain if you can do all that shit and still be a good team. I guess it's possible. I won't say it's never going to happen. I mean, it's definitely possible, but it's very difficult.
Right.
And here you have a guy who basically just blew your shit up. Like, I mean, blew your shit up and just, look, the only thing he didn't do here is name names.
Right.
But you know who the culprits are.
Yeah.
And one of them got his ass knocked out last week by Jose Ramirez.
So good.
Right. But
so good.
It's just, that is just a cleaning of house. Like there's no,
everyone's
got to go. Managers got to go.
It's like a crazy Eddie sale. The prices are so low. It's insane.
All right, let's jump to we'll jump to a little national story for this week. Prior to the Giants-Lions game earlier this week, Lions head coach Dan Campbell was interviewed and basically said that shortly after he was hired as head coach, he requested to have a live lion on the sideline to serve as the team mascot for games. Team ownership actually backed him up, but the league denied his request because they deemed the lion, quote, to be, quote, too risky, a bit risky. Okay. In your honest opinion, how cool would it have been if there was an actual lion on the sidelines for Detroit Lions home games?
Unfortunately, I'm going to be very unfun about this because, like, to me, it's super cruel to keep a lion in a cage on the sideline of a football game where thousands and thousands of people are cheering. It's probably going to be crazy and like scared to death and all that shit. So like, I'm never for actual animal mascots. Now, what I would love is for them to find somebody who's crazy like Dan Campbell, put them in a lion costume and let them run around like a lunatic on the sideline and roar as much as they want. I'm all for that shit, but I'm never for live animals on the sideline. I'm just not for it.
Like first of all, you would have to have one of the best lion trainers around, right? Because that lion could snap at any moment.
Well, no, it would be in a cage. It would have to be in a cage. It would have to be in a cage, because it's not like a dog on a leash.
Like what the fuck? Like what? I know, but what happens if like it's like a streaker, right? They just run out onto the field during the game.
And
you
just send Bobo out to
all those players are heading for the locker room. They're not going anywhere near that thing,
dude. It's a bad idea on every level. And Dan Campbell is such a I like Dan Campbell because like he's actually everything you kind of want your football coach to be, right? Crazy, but also kind of fun at the same time. Yeah. Like he's not a dick. He doesn't seem like, it's not like Saban or Belichick, right? Where they're just kind of jerks. Like he's crazy, but he's also kind of fun. But like, that's just nuts, dude. Just stop. Just stop. I'm begging you to stop. Just stop.
I mean, not many teams have live mascots, right? I think the Broncos have a horse, and like the Seahawks have a hawk. But I just keep picturing a lion, not in a cage. Because when I first read this article, I was like, I didn't even think of the cage part. I just thought it was going to be a lion just hanging out on the sideline. And if that lion breaks free or doesn't listen to commands or whatever, that's a shit show in and of itself, right? I mean, everybody's just heading for the hills.
Yeah, it's get out of here.
So
and the fans too, because it's going to go up into the stands and just start eating people. Like, this is a wild animal, dude. Come on. Anyway, Dan Campbell, get out of here.
All right, Giants running back Saquon Barkley ended his holdout, signing a 1-year deal worth $11 million guaranteed to stay with the team. The agreement came a few days after a Zoom call set up by some of the running backs in the league, including Christian McCaffrey and Austin Eckler. Barkley was holding out and considering sitting out week 1 as he was seeking $16 million per season. And he had also appeared on a podcast where he said that the best way to show what he's worth to the team is not show up. Did Barkley signing one day after a Zoom call to discuss the state of the running back position in the league make the position more irrelevant than it already was?
It didn't make it more irrelevant, I don't think, because I don't think that's possible, really, to be honest with you, for it to be more irrelevant than it already is. Like, tight ends are beating you, man. Like, get out of here. So, but here's what I'll say. I would love to know what was said on that Zoom call to make him fucking run to Joe Shane's office.
It couldn't have been good.
No,
it could not have been good. No way.
Guys, I imagine being something like this. Guys, whatever they're offering you, fucking take it, man.
Yeah.
Because nobody else is offering shit. If they're offering you $11 million, $11 million is like $16 million 2 years ago. So take it now, take it and run. Because guess what? If you're on the open market, you're getting 5, you're getting 4, you're getting 3, you're getting 2, you're getting 1.
Matt, think about it. Listen, man, think about how many running backs are still available right now.
And
I mean,
good.
and I'm talking like, like guys, like you're like, oh my God, I can't believe he's still available. Like I could think of 4 right off the top of my head. Of course, one is Dalvin Cook.
Yep.
But the second one is Leonard Fournette.
Yep.
Then you have Ezekiel Elliott.
Yep.
And you have Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
All 4 of them are still available right now. And those guys
can help you.
Yeah. And they're happy to take $3 or $4 million just to get a job. Just to get a job.
The Cooks thing is the craziest one to me. The other 3, I could see people just being like, you guys are washed. Like I can see that, especially with Zeke, especially with Fournette. But the other kid is not. And like, I understand that he's sort of hemming and hawing and he wants the most money. And like the Jets and the Dolphins, he's hoping they get into a bidding war. But guess what, dude? They're not getting into a bidding war. Take the highest offer and run, because they're not getting into a bidding war because they think they can approximate you with 2 other guys making half your salary. Like that's the problem.
The thing is that Dalvin Cook at this stage is probably going to wait until someone gets hurt.
I would.
Because that might be the only way he's going to get the money he wants.
Yeah.
If he signs right now, he's not getting what he wants.
Right.
If he goes to the Jets right now, yeah, it'll be great. I don't personally think we need him, but I'm happy to have him.
Right.
At the same time, Breece Hall is coming back this year. It just gives the Jets a little bit more time to make sure he's 100% ready to go instead of throwing him out there week 1 when maybe he's 90%, not 100.
Right.
With the Dolphins, they already have like 3 or 4 running backs already. I mean, how many freaking running backs do you possibly need? And I'm not trying to deter it from signing with the Dolphins. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Cook is hoping that the Dolphins just pay him more, because I think he does want. Part of me thinks he does want to go to Miami.
Absolutely wants to go. That's where he's from. I mean, he wants to play for his hometown. So, like, and again, like, go wherever you get the gig. Listen, if you're a running back, whoever's offering you the most money, even if it's a crappy ass team, just go there.
Yeah,
just go there, man.
But I think the best. I mean, it's a risky proposition to wait for an injury. You hope, like I can't picture Dalvin Cook in front of the TV going like this.
Right.
Kind of. Yeah, like, high hopes. And like Dalvin Cook will be like, if somebody, God forbid, gets hurt, oh, that's a shame. All right, get on the phone and call him. Like that might be his best option if he wants to get paid. If he wants to work, he'll just take, if there's an offer on the table, he'll take it.
Yeah. I actually have thought a lot about this, and I think I figured out a way to fix all this crap in the NFL. The NFL needs to amend their salary cap to offer, like, each team should get 1 guy they can sign to sort of like whatever contract they want and have it not go against the cap.
Kind of like an emergency type of thing?
No, more like a bird rights thing that we used to have with the NBA, remember? Where like you could sign a guy that you drafted, and if you went over the cap, it wouldn't like count against the luxury tax or some shit like that.
Right.
Like the same idea. So like if the Giants wanted to keep Saquon Barkley, right, they could offer him $16 million a year, and they could make that the one that doesn't go against the cap. Or they could do Jones against the cap, right? Like, so you can continue to pay your best player what they deserve to be paid, but at the same time, it doesn't kill you cap wise, right? Because like at some point, Patrick Mahomes is going to take a pay cut and it's going to seem insane, but he's going to have to, because if he keeps making more and more and more money, there's going to be less and less talent around him. It's like the Tom Brady thing, right? So I would love for them to do something like that, where you can allot one guy, just one guy, and the cap stays the same. It's going up as it's supposed to go up, but you can allot one guy as sort of like an anything contract and pay him whatever you want, and it doesn't go against the cap. And I think that would help running backs and other guys make a little bit more money, because then you could bump up, or you could have more depth, right? You could allot more money for depth, that sort of thing, because your quarterback's contract isn't on the cap, that sort of thing. Anyway, just shit I think about.
All right. Sean Payton, in an interview with USA Today, with former Broncos head coach and current Jets OC Nathaniel Hackett for the job he did in Denver last season, calling it one of the worst coaching jobs in NFL history. No one will argue that Hackett was a disaster in Denver, but where Payton is taking a lot of heat is calling out the coach by name to the press, which is a bit of an unwritten rule among coaches that you simply don't do. Payton also criticized the way things were done last season in Denver, which inadvertently became a shot at Broncos management while giving his QB Russell Wilson a pass. Payton didn't exactly apologize for his comments, but did regret saying them publicly, citing that he forgot he doesn't work for Fox Sports anymore. Maddie, did Payton give himself a pass on the 23 season if the Broncos are terrible?
No, I actually think he made it worse. He can't suck.
No.
If they suck, he's going to get
a lot of shit
destroyed. He opened himself up to so much extra criticism, where, let's be fair, if he hadn't said a word, he's getting no criticism this year. Right?
Probably not.
Thinks that team sucks.
Yeah, probably not. Because everybody thinks Russell Wilson is washed up.
Right. So even if he won like 7 games, they'd be like, oh, Sean Payton, another great coaching job, even though that guy sucks in big games. But that's a story for another day. He screwed himself with this, like, more than you know, man, because he is now going to get stomped. And if the Jets win that game, which they should win that game, if the Jets win that game,
get ready.
The Jets are going to destroy him. And listen, I know your coach likes to talk. He needs
coach?
Yes.
Saleh?
Yeah. Not like
talk shit.
Not like he doesn't start the talking shit, but he always responds to it. Right. And I want him, if they win that game, to say nothing. Just let the win speak for itself. Just don't say anything.
That game,
you don't have to
first
say
of
anything.
all, I'm telling you right now, that game's getting flexed.
Oh,
that's going to be one of the first games getting flexed.
And
Especially if both teams wind up.
Game, dude. It's going to be
especially if both teams are like good. Like if the Broncos start out well and the Jets start out well, that game's definitely getting flexed.
Here's the thing. The Jets are going to start out well. The Broncos are not. Okay. Like that game. On paper, the Jets should beat the shit out of them in that game.
They should.
But we don't play the game on paper, so I understand it could be closer than that. I'm not saying that. But on paper, that should be a blowout. Just on the defense alone. Just with the defense alone.
Well, that's the thing about – I think the Broncos do have a good defense. So I think it could be like a low-scoring game. But the problem is that –
they're not going to be able to move the ball.
Well, the thing is my first reaction to the comments was, I can't defend the indefensible. Hackett was terrible.
He was bad.
He was bad. There's no defending the indefensible on Nathaniel Hackett. So in a way, Payton was not wrong by saying because it was one of the worst coaching jobs because he didn't make it through the season.
Yep.
That is a terrible coaching job. If you can't even make it through your first season, you're getting fired.
Yep.
Okay. So there's that. My initial reaction to Payton was, I don't get the vibe that people are talking about him as much in a way. Right. It's almost like Denver is not, I'm not saying it's a wasteland, but it's not an exciting team either because they were so bad last year. They were just a really, really bad team. So part of me thought he did it to kind of put the team, I guess, in the spotlight of, because they were irrelevant, right? Nobody was really talking about them a lot.
Right.
Because they were just such a bad team. And it was just about Russell Wilson. Mm-hmm. So I think he did something to try to make them relevant so people are talking about him. I will say this right now, that I believe that Sean Payton is one of the most overrated coaches of all time.
Agreed.
because his postseason record is 9-8. He's won one Super Bowl 14 years ago. And that was also like, and I'm not making excuses for that Super Bowl, but that was also right after Katrina. So there was definitely some,
wasn't it shitty weather? Wasn't it raining and Peyton Manning?
It was kind of shitty. It was definitely shitty, but it was in Florida though, right? It was in like Miami or something.
The only caveat, Craig, and since we're doing caveats today and it's not preseason, the only caveat is Sean Payton did have the worst call in NFL playoff history go against him, which would have gotten him to a second Super Bowl. That's all I'm saying.
See, but like part of me thinks that if the Broncos are crap this year, then Peyton's going to be like, well, look what I had to work with.
Yeah. And they're going to go, you know what? You said the other guy did a terrible job. You did a terrible job too. Yeah. Like you can't have it both ways. And that's the problem. He wants to have it both ways and he can't. He just can't. And it makes me giggle because he's going to be terrible. It's going to be great.
All right, Maddie, we're 2 topics away and we're done.
Okay.
Okay. Like we're not, this is kind of a mix of in case you missed
gotcha.
it. So
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're just doing I just kind of firing off like stuff left and right. So
do you want me to do my soccer stuff now? Or do you want me to wait?
Yeah. Well,
real quick.
All right. I'll give you, all right. Wait, let me get my timer.
Okay.
All right. Let's see if you can beat the time today.
I can always beat the time. Give me 4 minutes. We'll take it right to 4:30 or 4 minutes. We're at 56 minutes right now recording. So give me 4 minutes.
All right. But I got 2 more topics to cover, dude.
No. And then we'll do the 2 topics.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
All right. Ready? Actually, it's 4:27. So you get 3 minutes.
Nice.
Ready? I'm going to start you off. Get ready. And it's time for 3 minutes of Matt talking about soccer and go.
Okay, U.S. women's national team. Them losing sucks, right? It sucks because they're really very good. But here's the problem. Them being good and them fighting for equality and them fighting for more women's sports to be played are the reason that they got eliminated this early in the thing. It shows you that the rest of the world is catching up, and that's not a bad thing unless you're American, which is a bad thing because that means our women's soccer team is not going to win that much anymore. The other thing, too, is Megan Rapinoe smiling after she missed the penalty kick was not her, like, laughing at, just laughing it off, like, I don't care that I missed that. It was cruel, man. It was cruel for her career to end that way. When I don't think she'd ever missed a penalty kick before that. It was cruel. And so, when cruel things happen to you, you just kind of go, oh, motherfucker. You know what I mean? And I think the smile was that.
I don't tell the Republicans that.
Well,
they think it's because they she hates America, and that's why they lost.
But I'm right? Like, that's why she was smiling there. Now, real quick, Arsenal won today. Nice. Start off the season 1-0, 2-1 victory. Excellent work by everybody. We still got some stuff to clear up because let's be honest, you can't be up 2-0, not go up 3-0, then give up the goal and be scared for the last 10 minutes. Clean it up a little bit, but a good way to start. Just get the wins and just keep on rolling.
Wow. I got you at 1:17.
That's how I do it, kid.
So now that there's 1:23 or 1:33 left over, that gives a little more time. So let's finish up.
Let's do it. Next one.
I got nothing to talk about but this. So, all right. 2 more topics, both non-New York. We'll start with the NBA. The NBA sent a memo to all 30 teams in the league regarding the situation involving Damian Lillard and his desire to only be traded to the Miami Heat. Lillard's agent, Aaron Goodstein, reportedly reached out to multiple teams that were interested in his client and warned them not to trade for him. Reportedly, Goodstein implied to the teams that Lillard would not play 100% for them, nor honor his remaining deal unless it was with Miami. Portland has not been impressed with any deal the Heat have offered and may need to get a third team involved in trade discussions. Goodstein has denied he told teams Lillard wouldn't play for them and said that Lillard would be happy to play for whatever team that trades for him. So the question on the floor is, do you think a team narked on Lillard and his agent to the league?
I was probably Portland.
You think it was Portland?
I do, because they didn't like any of the trade things. So the only way for them to get better trade offers is to make it so that he'll go anywhere. And now he has to go anywhere. But let me just say this real quick, Craig, because what I saw on the internet after this, on Twitter and all the idiot places, was people being like, oh, it's the same thing that every other star has ever done. Blah, blah, blah. No, it's not. No, it is not. You've had tons of guys demand trades, and you've had tons of guys say, they're like, it's the same thing as Kevin Durant did. I'm like, no, it wasn't. Kevin Durant said, I would like to go to Phoenix. That's what he said. He didn't say, if I don't go to Phoenix, I'm not playing for you. I'm not going to play hard for you. I'm not going to live out my contract for you. He said, I'd like to go to Phoenix. And then that said, okay,
he did say that.
Phoenix.
He did say that, but I think he was also open to going to a contending team just because he wants to win a championship. I don't
Right.
think it was Phoenix or nothing like it was with Bradley Beal.
Right. And my thing is, but Bradley Beal had a no trade clause, and that's totally different. So like, but my thing with this is that those guys have said, I want to go to a certain team, but then they didn't have their agent go around and be like, if he goes to your team, he's not going to play hard. He's not going to live out his contract. And that's where the difference is. Tons of guys have said, I want to go here, there, and everywhere. But it's the follow-up saying, if he gets traded to your team, or they'll say, I just want to go to a contender, or I'll go to these couple teams or whatever. And most of the time, it's not that big a deal because the other team has a package worthy of that player to send over. The Heat don't. I'm sorry, a Tyler Hero deal with 3 picks in like 10 years doesn't do them any good. It just doesn't.
They just don't have the assets, man.
Right.
They just don't.
And so now they can add a third team in, they can do other stuff and get it done. But the thing is that don't go around telling people that if he gets traded to your team, he's not going to play. Don't do that. Idiots.
I am so convinced that a team first of all, I think the agent is totally guilty. I think he totally did this. Because I think as soon as if the league is sending out a memo about this, that means this guy is guiltier than shit.
It also means that more than one team narked, Craig.
Yeah. And I think it was the teams that were inquiring about Lillard.
Yeah.
And the thing is, this is a bad look for Lillard in a few ways, because for a guy who was committed to Portland and committed to, remember the shit he said about, I wouldn't want to be a part of a big 3
ring chasing.
Yeah, ring chasing, all that stuff. And now you're basically saying that he only wants to play for the Miami Heat, who just went to the finals last year. Yeah. I mean, the thing is that Lillard looks like a major hypocrite here. And the thing is also, I'm not saying he didn't give his blood, sweat, and tears for Portland. He did. Portland in many ways didn't do right by him they had CJ McCollum, and that was basically it.
Right.
Portland didn't really have a lot of other players to build around to win a championship. They were never going to win a championship with Lillard and McCollum and no one else. Right. It just wasn't going to happen. So that was that. It just makes Lillard look terrible because he just looks like a major hypocrite for all the stuff he said about big 3s and winning a championship. And now it's like, well, I want to go to the Heat because they just went to the finals last year.
Right.
So that was the thing. And I totally believe the agent did this. There's nothing that you could never dissuade me from thinking any differently than that, because the league wouldn't get involved if this guy wasn't guilty of some shady shit. Yeah. And he is 1,000,000% guilty of this. He could deny it all he wants, but there's no way he did not go to teams and say, okay, Sacramento, you want Lillard? Well, guess what? He might come up with a hamstring pull running down the court, and that's going to suck for you because he doesn't want to play for you.
Yeah.
And whatever. So you could trade for him if you want, but if he gets a Charlie horse, he's out for the season. So, because he's not going to want to, so there's no way in hell that this guy did not tell those teams that his client would not play for them. Nope. That's that. All right. Finally, Juan Soto wasn't very happy with his team's performance after they were swept by the Mariners this week, accusing the team of giving up and not fighting when they fell behind in games. The Padres have been a major disappointment this season after reaching the NLCS last year. They spent big money and now face a crossroads with Blake Snell and Josh Hader set to become unrestricted free agents. Soto has 1 year left on his contract and has been rumored to be a major trade target this offseason. Maddie, can the Padres afford to blow it up after investing so much money and prospects into winning a championship with this core?
I mean, I don't know how you can blow it up. I mean, there's probably a couple guys you can trade, but you can't trade the Machado contract. Nope. One's taking that.
You just like Bogarts for 11 years.
No one's taking the Bogarts contract. Yeah, somebody might take the Tatis contract, but I'm not sure that they would. Like, if I'm a team and they want me to take Tatis, you pay half for the next 15 years or whatever the life of the contract. You pay half. I'll do that shit.
And that's where these lucrative, these long-term deals are really coming back to screw people, because you're signing guys for 13 years, and Machado, I think, got 10, right? Then he got another 10 years.
Well, I think he picked up the option, didn't he? Or something like that.
He picked up his option, but then they gave him a long-term deal. So I think the new contract kicks in next year.
Right. So I mean, they can try, but I don't know who's taking those contracts. And also, like, are you going to do what the Mets did and like take on a lot of the money over the next 20 years to get better prospects back? And then like, how doesn't that screw you in 10 years, 6 years when you got to pay those guys? Like the whole thing is a disaster. It's a disaster. And you know what? It's gorgeous. I love it. You know why? Because everybody in the world talked about the Yankees for years. Oh, they just spend more money than everybody else. And you know what? It's not that fucking simple, man.
Nope.
You can spend money all day long, but you know what you're seeing this year is that the game has changed. And a lot of these teams that spent a lot of these money on the way the game was played 2 years ago are getting screwed right now. Right.
And a lot of the other teams who are kind of biding their time and being a little bit more patient are actually starting to see the fruit of their labor. Like they're starting to see that
if you notice,
it's successful.
Well, here's the thing. If you notice, Craig, what's happening right now is a lot of teams with a lot of younger players who have been playing under the pitch clock for the last, I think it started in the minor leagues like 3 years ago. Those teams are doing better. With the no shift and the no pitch and the pitch clock added, those teams are doing better because those guys have been playing under those rules for years. Whereas if you're a team that had a bunch of major leaguers, you have never played under those rules, and this is your first year, right? So it's. I mean, listen, the Padres are going to be bad probably for a long time unless they try and do something. They may try and get Ohtani, and that may. But I'll tell you this, Craig. Ohtani's going to make all that money, and he's never going to be as good as this year. It's never going to happen again, man.
And those are the contracts that scare the shit out of me, though.
Well, but also you're paying for a guy for the next, say, 10 years to be a pitcher and a hitter. He's not going to do that for the next 10 years. He's not. He's not.
The minute the arm goes.
Yeah. I mean, he's a good hitter, but he's not worth all that money.
But I'm saying the minute the arm goes, the minute he needs, God forbid, Tommy John surgery, that's going to be it for his pitching career. Like I think he's just not going to be a pitcher anymore after that, because then he's going to run the risk of hurting it again.
Yeah.
And after that. So I think
it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad. And the Padres are in a bad spot, but it's of their own doing.
I mean, I think they're in the same predicament as the Mets were. I think it's their own doing. I feel like it's just the thing about the Padres is, and I'm not trying to say the Mets are, I think the Mets are really bad. Don't get me wrong. Like it's bad.
No, the Mets were smarter because they did all short-term contracts.
But the Padres are worse.
Yeah.
Because they have so much money tied into these guys. And the thing is now, but the thing is too, is now you got to worry about if you're even going to pay Blake Snell, for example.
Well,
or if you're going to pay Josh Hader. That's another one you have to think, how the hell are you going to do this? Because you're still tied to Machado for this long, Tatis for this long. Darvish still has another 3 more years, I think, left on his contract. He signed a 6-year contract. Bogarts is here for 10 more years. I mean, they are really kind of up shit's creek right now with this because they have so much bad contracts, and you gave up a lot to get Soto. Now you may not have a choice, but you might have to deal him. I don't think you have much of a choice this offseason.
They have absolutely no choice. They absolutely have to deal him. But this is where the Mets were better, Craig, is they were short-term contracts. They signed Scherzer and Verlander to contracts that could be tradable because it's only 1 or 2 more years of that money. It's not 10, 15 years of that money.
And you see what it is too with a team like the Texas Rangers who are going for it this year. Like it makes sense for them to go after a guy like Scherzer. When the Astros dealing with all their injuries, it made sense for them to go after Verlander. I personally think the Mets did Verlander a solid by trading him to Houston.
I agree.
I think they had better offers on the table from other teams. He just wanted to go to Houston.
Right.
And since he had a no trade clause, like we just mentioned about Bradley Beal, pretty much got to pick and choose where he wanted to go.
I got no problem.
So, but it's bad in San Diego. Like it's like I couldn't believe how bad it was like this year. Like, I mean, and I kind of expected the Padres to eventually like make a run.
Right.
Like, God, they got off to a bit of a rough start. I was like, yeah, it's early in the season or whatever. And man, before you know it, we're already middle of August and the team is a disaster. And now you have Soto basically saying they're quitting. They're quitting during games as soon as it gets a little dicey.
And I'll tell you, the Yankees aren't trading for him, and neither are the Mets. So I don't know where he's going. I bet he goes to Boston. What do you think?
It's possible, but like I just don't know like what teams' farm systems are these days because they're gonna have to get prospects back. I don't even know who has the best farm system in the league. I always assume it's Tampa, but Tampa's not gonna take on his money. I mean, or they're not gonna trade a bunch of prospects and then pay the guy $300 million.
No. That they're not doing that.
The craziest thing I saw about the Tampa Bay Rays was this year that Zach Eflin, who got a 3-year, $36 million deal from them. He was the Phillies pitcher. It's like the number 3 or 4 pitcher in the Phillies. That's the largest contract that the Rays have given to a pitcher, I think, ever. Because, most of the time the hitters were like Wander Franco and they don't really hemorrhage big money. the Rays are just never going to play that game.
Well, because they'll just have an opener.
Yeah, unless maybe the only other team that might want to go after him are the Orioles. But the Orioles, I think, need pitching.
Why?
I mean, they have hitting already. I don't
Right,
think they
but also
need
why trade all these young guys? They're all hitting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if you're the Padres, you're asking for one of those 3 kids, right?
Easily.
Like, wouldn't you? I would. So yeah, it makes no sense to me. But look, the Padres are up a creek, and somebody will take Soto. Somebody will, but I don't think it'll be the Yankees, and I don't think it'll be the Mets. And that's 2 huge teams that you've just taken out of the running here. Because if I'm the Yankees or Mets and you want Soto, I'm just signing him the year after.
But okay, so we were talking before about Alonso, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like with Alonso, like what we said was that the Mets don't let this become an Ohtani situation with Alonso. If you feel like this deal is not getting anywhere close and his agent's being a douche and his agent thinks he deserves all this money or whatever, then walk away and try to trade him and just get prospects back, because he'll have another year left on his deal, and teams may be different the following year compared to this year. Do you see a similar situation with Soto, the way it was like with Ohtani and with possibly Alonso?
I think they're going to trade him in the offseason.
I mean, I can't see the Padres running it back with him, right?
No, especially not after this. They can't. He's got to go, and he's got to go in the offseason. And to be honest, like they're going to – I wouldn't be surprised if it happened early, because they're just going to trade him. And I don't think
like by the GM meetings, maybe.
Well, yeah, but the other thing too is he's not been good for 2 years since he went to the Padres. He's not been good, so the Padres are not going to be able to recoup what they gave up for him. Like,
Yankee fans want him because of the short porch, like a lefty hitter in the short porch.
And great, but I'm not giving up prospects. He can come as a free agent if he wants to, but why would I trade for him? Why? Yeah. I got Aaron Judge to be out there for the next year. Who cares?
And if you think about it, like hypothetically, and I'm not saying they're not going to be competitive next year, right? If the Yankees decide, okay, well, we're going to make some signings, but we're not going to really go ape shit right now with like our money. Like you said, they could wait another year. And when he becomes a free agent, they'll give him the contract, because then Cashman will have the money and they'll have the surplus. They'll probably be out from under a couple of bad contracts where they can afford them. And then they'll be able to, and that could definitely happen as well. All right, Matty, before we get out of here, you got anything else?
No.
A man, a few words, ladies and gentlemen. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of The Polar Opposites. I'd like to thank everybody for checking us out, courtesy of Apple Podcasts. Like and subscribe and comment. Leave us a 5-star review. You can follow the show on Twitter at PolarOppo, on Instagram at PolarOppoPod. We are on Threads, but we're not sure how long Threads is going to be still going, but we may just have to start doing the old Facebook page back in the day or something, Matty. What do you think?
Maybe. And for the next show, I will. I'm getting a little retrospective of one Pee Wee Herman, R.I.P.
Oh God, heartbroken I was, man.
Brutal.
Like, just not. Yeah.
I don't usually get sad when people die because I don't give a fuck, but like that one hurt.
I remember that was like one of my worst days at the office too, because I was like kind of stressed out, and then all of a sudden, like, my wife's cousin texted like, "Yo, Pee Wee Herman died," and I'm like, "Oh fuck!"
Of course he did.
I was like, "This is just like the worst day." Like, it just made a bad day 10 times worse, because then all I kept doing was watching like Pee Wee Herman stuff, because that's just how great he was. But we're gonna do a retrospective next week with all the stuff. So on behalf of Matt, this is Craig. This has been The Polar Opposites. Wherever you are, stay safe. Enjoy the rest of your week, and enjoy preseason football this weekend. If that's your thing. All right, Maddie, take us out like you always do.
Bye.